Can I sit on your lap? How are you? You know what? I can use a break.
I have 4 classes that I put as the late starts. I think I put that in an email someplace. I have 2 online late starts, but it's a stat and 1 online.
Alright. No, my fault.
Right. You know, those union contracts I gotta follow.
I hate that.
Yeah, they are such shit. You know, this is
Should go on performance.
this is my union contract. I do this to my You can't pick the lines you like. You have to take the entire document as a whole right to I know you're not giving it, but I'm just saying. I got people, no, I got guys that say, well, what about that one?
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Before we get to the opening item of the honors presentation, 2 board members have asked to speak to you tonight, Mr. Blau and Mr. Kaplan.
Thank you. Just like to start off by thanking everyone for being here tonight, and just to announce that I intend to run for re-election for the Board of Education in May of 2021.
Mr. Kaplan?
Just wanted to also announce that I intend to run once again for the position of trustee for the Board of Education. It's been a real privilege and an honor to be in this position for 3 years. I've learned a lot and hope I contributed as much as I've learned, and I look forward to running again. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now to opening items, honors presentation.
It is our pleasure to welcome parents, students, staff, and members of the community to the honors ceremony portion of our Board of Education meeting. Congratulations to Dr. Joanne Vaccaro, the district's chief psychologist and school number 3 psychologist, for being named a Model School Psychology Field Intern Supervisor by the National Association of School Psychologists and its Graduate Education Committee. In a letter to Dr. Vaccaro, the organization said that the selection was based on nominations and interns whom she supervised the last 5 years. It also included a letter of support from a colleague or supervisor.
Director of Health, Physical Education, and Athletics in the Oceanside School District. Congratulations to Isabella Lazaro and John Justin of Oceanside High School, who are recipients of the Outstanding Physical Education Award from the Nassau Zone of the New York State Association for Health, Physical Education, Recreation, and Dance. Their PE teachers are Claire Meeker and Dawn Howard.
Good evening. I'm Mitch Bigman, Director of Social Studies. It is my pleasure to announce this recognition for Julia Height of Oceanside High School. Julia took first place in both the Long Island and New York State division of the stock market game sponsored by the Simpson Foundation. This is the first time that OHS and Julia beat out thousands of other participants across New York State. Congratulations, Julia. Her teacher is Erica Dezelowitz.
Good evening. My name is Robert Grace, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Director of Fine and Performing Arts for the Oceanside School District. The following students are to be congratulated for their outstanding achievement in the area of art or music. In music, high school band student Samantha Civil has been selected to perform with the esteemed All-National Symphony Orchestra. Her teachers are Mrs. Lynn Garcia and Mr. Michael Detter. Teachers, All-State Performing Groups, All-State Mixed Chorus, Allison Elizabeth and Patrick McGowan. All-State Treble Chorus, Sophie Stappa and Samantha Santiago. All-State Choral Alternates are Nicholas Sammartano and Julia Shapiro, all students of Mr. George Grossman. All-State String Orchestra, Melanie Posner. Her teacher is Stephanie Stagnita. The New York State Virtual Honors Concert. 3 Oceanside High School band students were selected to participate in the New York State Virtual Honors Concert Band. They are Brooke DeMaz, Patrick Officio, and Ethan Blue, all students in the area of art. Congratulations to Emery, Long Island Scholar Artist in the area of media arts. Her teacher is Mrs. Nancy Nigro. In visual arts, Kaylin Mahaffey was named as an Award of Merit winner in the Newsday Long Island Scholar Artist Program. Her teacher is Danielle Cascarelli.
Be it resolved that a page from the minutes of this meeting be set aside to record these accomplishments, along with continued best wishes for success. Done at Oceanside, New York, this 20th day of January 2021.
Congratulations to all honorees. Approval of the minutes. Any questions? Motion to approve the minutes?
Move it.
All in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, financial reports. Any questions? Okay, file for audit. Items for information. Dr. Harrington, COVID-19 update.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Cold evening to join us, and for those that are joining us virtually. So as I've begun every meeting this year, I will begin with a COVID update, and really many of the points and questions I will answer, I was from the community in advance of this meeting. So I hope I answer all, if not the vast majority of your questions. So just starting with the COVID notifications, you've all seen the letters go out on a daily basis. I know the numbers go up a bit, sometimes they go down a bit, but I can tell you that we are tracking them very consistently with the Nassau County average, and we can almost predict really on a daily basis about how many cases we think we're going to get as confirmed cases, and we've stayed pretty consistent with that number. So again, it's one, but we are better than the county average, and to that end, we're very proud of our can to keep our kids and our employees safe. To that end, I thank the parents again and the community at large for their continued partnership with us. A second parent assurance regarding symptoms to be checked prior to out. We do have the vast majority of them returned. We that be continued and that the parents. We are also going to ask that we know it's January, we know it's been tough, we know people are tired, but more so than ever, we need to be diligent about following the protective guidelines that have been established. Nothing has been released. Nothing has been given out as strong, even stronger than we were in September. So we are going to again ask, it's not an issue in school because kids are wearing their masks without any problem in school, but those of us that aren't, about in the community, we see kids the minute they're out of school, those masks are off, and that's an issue, and we need your help with that. Quarantine, and we understand that every family has their own issues that they need to deal with, but at the end of the day, the students are in front of us, do remain our responsibility. We're as teachers, and we need the parents' understanding that if they violate those extended rules, it does have an impact on our teachers, on the rest of the students in our schools, and we're going to also, I'll be sending out a video post February with some of those reminders, but I wanted to mention it publicly. Of course, the gather up, as that all is, we need your continued help. But overall, we do believe that we are, we continue to remain a safe environment for our students, and we are proud of that. We'll also tell you, while I don't have an exact number, I do know anecdotally that many become vaccinated, myself included, Mr. Vito included, and many of us have appointments for that. So our teachers, our staff are taking that responsibility very seriously, and of course they have the benefit of being able to fit in that category where we have the ability to make those appointments, to partner so that we could possibly make it a little easier for our faculty and staff to get appointments, but unfortunately because of the shortage that is out there, we're not able to actually act on that as we speak, but we are pursuing it as best as we possibly can. I can assure you of that. Some other questions that came up, it's something I'm excited about in terms of fine and performing arts. Mr. Brace is working very closely with his faculty as we speak. We do intend pieces being showcased by the end to perform in some capacity. We don't have the exact details of what that will be, but that is our intent. It is also our intent to have a virtual art show this year, so students' work will be represented in that way as well. And he is also very, very optimistic about working out some sort of a production, but we are really, really trying to do that for our middle school and high school students. Really great news on the marching band uniform front. Mr. Brace just today was told that by the end of this week, which we are closely approaching, they should be arriving. So if all goes well, I would hope that for our February meeting that we have a representative student or two to actually be able to be present and display the actual uniform. Our intent always was that if everything goes the way we are hoping and praying, that we will have a typical Memorial Day parade and our students will be able to wear that proud uniform at the Memorial. But kudos to Mr. Brace for being tenacious about that, and we're really, really excited about what's happening with that. There were some questions about testing, the term testing. We have no additional information from the state or from the College Board in either of those areas. I promise you, we have no intention of keeping any of that secretive. So I have a meeting tomorrow or Friday with the commissioner of the state, where we continue to ask, please, the sooner we know, the sooner we can comfort our constituents and make them know. But there's questions about the testing. There are many layers of it, but right now, nothing definitive has been given to us in terms of whether or not they will take place in the format that they traditionally have taken place. There was a question raised about virtual budget meetings. We did have our meeting virtually last month, but of course, only as luck would have it, the one day in December we decided to have a meeting, and it was an important timely meeting because of our contract with the EPC. We had to have a meeting, so we did choose to do it virtually. On any kind of virtual meeting moving forward, that's our goal. Even if it means if we have inclement weather, we move to a different date. However, if we were to be in a really unfortunate situation where we have to revisit anything that looked like we did last spring, then we'll have a different conversation. But I refuse to even have that dialogue because I'm not going in that direction. I'm going in the other direction, that things are getting better, they're not going to get worse. It was a very vanilla budget. So there are not going to be a whole lot of highlights that we're going to talk about. There are not going to be a lot of initiatives, a lot of new wish list types of things that we were able to embed in this budget. We're just not able to do that. So, okay, and we will be okay. And thank goodness we had the reserves we did to be able to do what we did. in terms of being prepared to open our schools, but moving here, we need to be incredibly prudent about how we look to propose a budget to our community. With that being said, Mr. Coakley, I will turn the mic over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington, and good evening, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to present our budget development process and budget workshop number 1 to you. As Dr. Harrington mentioned, we are still in the very preliminary stages of developing our budget, but I wanted to take the opportunity that will go into how our budget will be developed for the 21-22 school year. The topics covered tonight will explain a bit about the tax cap, our district demographics, some of the factors that go into this year that will shape our budget, and a review of the administrative and capital components, plus transportation and the Department of Community Activities. The 3 main budget goals Oceanside follows are: maintaining the budget will sustain and retain viable programs for our students to enhance their learning opportunities, support all students' needs exponentially over the years. The district continues to exhaust all efforts to fiscally support the needs of all students by strategic planning under state and federal mandates. Manage district facilities, both internal and external, to provide a safe and clean environment for students and community. In 2011, legislation was passed at the state level to establish a tax levy 19. The governor made the tax cap permanent by signing it into law. This now caps the maximum allowable increase of a year-to-year tax increase a school district can levy on its community. The tax cap is based on a complex formula that has to be verified and approved by the Office of the State Comptroller in March annually. Index came in at 1.23%, which is the maximum allowable growth factor for all districts in New York to use for 21-22 budgeting prior to any district's exclusions or exemptions. 1,441 reported on our latest BEDS report to the State Education Department, and also 476 students in private and parochial schools. District-wide, we have 10 schools across 8 campuses of over 900,000 square feet of interior space and 105 acres of land we maintain. We provide transportation to over 2,100 students, 7 non-public and special education schools. 17.57% of our population is free and reduced. 11.96% of our population has special education classification, and 4.43% of our population are English language learners. Budgeting practices. There were recent modest increases to health insurances, which had a very minimal financial impact this year. Our existing collective bargaining agreements allow us to forecast with accurate figures, and the flexibility of utilizing capital reserves with community voter support to meet important facility improvement needs, such as the high school science lab project that's underway, without any additional financial burden to taxpayers. However, we still have a lot of work to do to meet the challenges. We are still dealing with fiscal uncertainty as a result of the pandemic impact. The state has withheld 20% on all of, and there are ongoing conversations that continue in Albany about the continuation, which would be a revenue shortfall for us. The federal government's recently announced stimulus package still remains vague for us at this point, with no specific allocations or dollar amounts shared for New York K-12 public school districts. We are awaiting more clarification, and we have county and statewide webinars and conference calls scheduled. Long-range financial planning remains a difficult task to forecast and project the district's financial picture with unknown variables. The LIPA settlement of 2 local power plants is still pending at the Nassau County Legislature's level, which will have a revenue and a tax impact based on the proposed pilot payment schedule, also known as the glide path. State aid remains uncertain for the 2021 school year, as well as for budget projections for next year's budget. And as previously mentioned, CPI, also known as Consumer Price Index, came in at 1.23%, which is the 2nd consecutive year it's been below 2%. What that means for us is it limits our year-to-year growth based on the tax cap formula. And finally, the governor just yesterday has released his preliminary executive budget, which makes it very difficult for us to use his preliminary numbers since there will be many iterations and revisions from now until the time his budget is enacted April 1st. Here is the schedule the district will follow in developing the budget. As in the past, the district will remain transparent, forthcoming, and share any new fiscal developments. The next budget presentation will cover the program component of the proposed 21-22 budget at the February 10th Board of Education meeting. At this time, are there any questions about the budget development process?
Mr. Copley? Just a couple of questions. The 1.23 for this year to year, that's a significant down trend from past year. Last year's was 1.83?
1.81.
1.81. All right, the other question I have is year to year. The free and reduced lunch, is that up?
It's actually down. Last year it was at 18.76%.
So it's down, what was it last year?
18.76% last year.
Okay, and the same thing for special ed, is that up or down?
It's down. Last year we were at 12.54%.
Okay, and then of course the last one, please.
We were actually, this is an increase. Last year for English language learners, we were at 3.97%.
So this is stable.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions about the budget development process?
Mr. Copley, the 20% state cut, approximately how much money does that represent that we're anticipating?
Great question. So with it's actually a withholding. It's not a cut, but what's happening is every state aid payment that we have received this year has been withheld 20%. Just yesterday, the governor did announce that based on the proposed stimulus package at the federal level, we may be in a position to be fully restored. So what happens is when we receive a payment, you will see what has been withheld at the state. It's not cut yet at this point, but again, the governor does have the authority to make cuts, but he has not laid out any specificity in that respect. But if we look at our entire state aid package, the 20% would be approximately over $4 million.
There has been no restoration of the withholding from July, has there?
No.
And no indication that there will be?
We have actually been made full from the July and summer, but beginning September, we have been withheld 20% for each of our state aid payments.
Were we made whole because of the CARES Act?
No, we were made whole because the state started the fiscal year off for us in July and August, 100%. And
how did we fare with the trends? Some districts went further than we did, but we were trying to honor the requirements of the CARES Act and so on by keeping people basically employed. How did we fare with that with regard to aid? Are we going to get any reimbursement on that?
we were, my opinion, we did very well during the spring months. We have great partners in Guardian, First Student, and our other bus providers. For Oceanside, we've made good on all of our payments. We have been in contact with them. They were actually a part of our superintendent's task force reopening. We have the same contract terms as we had in the past. Other districts were not as lucky if they were, quote unquote, breached the contract. They are now under a different set of contract terms. To your point, we do have the preliminary numbers with respect to transportation aid, and we are stable from the prior year.
All right, and then the other thing I was just curious if you had a chance to look at is once again on the kick about combining the expense-driven aid categories, which we never benefit from when they do that. That's a sneaky way of picking our pocket. And I just want, I mean, I'm against it, and I've made that clear to our senator's office and also to our assemblywoman's office, but I just was wondering if, you know, you've had a chance to take a look at those numbers. Should he be able to pull something like that off?
Yes, there's actually a combination of the expense-driven aids for this year's budget development called services aid, which is a combination of BOCES aid, high tax aid, and transportation aid. We looked at the combination of the numbers, compared them to last year, And we are, again, stable, but for us, we have a partnership with Questar BOCES, which they will really unpack the itemized allocation, so we will have those real numbers once we get further into budget development.
Okay, like I said, I know that Dr. Harrington, also, you'll be talking to the superintendents. We need to put together some kind of a legislative advocacy page where we get, you know, the top 5 issues, top 10 issues.
Yeah, well, that's already been drafted, and actually tomorrow I have a Google Meet with representatives from NISBA and NISCUS in order to do just exactly that, so
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then when we get that, we can then share it with the PTAs.
Absolutely.
And get the parents on board to do some advocacy, because that's the only way we're going to get what we need is for us to write call our legislators, because writing to the governor is very ineffective. There's no response when you do that. It's better off that you talk to your legislators. So I want to start that process as soon as possible. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Coakley?
Yeah.
The 20% being withheld or cut, is there talk, and I realize everything is always in flux, about it being a permanent?
So the conversations that we have been looming with that kind of over our head without any definitive clarification. So the answer is no, there's been no official guidance. So how we've approached budget development is, as Dr. Harrington mentioned, very, very conservative. The governor did release his very preliminary budget to us. We're already looking at the doom and gloom. We factored into the pandemic adjustment. We factored into the 20% cuts. We factored into other layers of the unknown that may come because we have to be in that situation to sustain program. Once we have further clarification, we can paint a better financial picture because, as you know, our budget works expenditure first. So we start with the expenditure budget and then we work towards building the revenues to balance out the budget. So we still have not much, but a bit of time to really get more clarification from the state and really the federal government at the same time.
Thank you.
The first component we will review tonight is the administrative component, which are on pages 1 through 5 of your handouts, as well as page 19, 20, 20, and 1. 19 being transportation, 20 and 21 being DACA. Please note in your handouts, provided with the proposed 21-22 budget, on one side you will see budget codes and dollar amounts, and on the other side of the handout you will see the corresponding budget codes with the budget explanation of each line item. The following categories are included in the administrative component of our budget, as you can see on the screen. And before we begin the line-by-line review, here's how our process is going to unfold. Highlights you will shortly see on the screen are going to be denoted by the following: page number, account code, description, and up and down directional arrows which will reference a proposed increase or decrease and an explanation of what that proposed change is and why. Page 1 of the handout covers the areas of Board of Education and district meetings. At this time, there is nothing we are highlighting, but are there any questions from the board about page 1? Page 2 covers the areas of central administration. There is nothing we are highlighting, but at this time, are there any questions from the board about page 2? Page 3 covers the areas of business administration and financial services. At this time, there is nothing we are highlighting, but are there any questions from the board about page 3? Page 4, public information. The district is in the process of contracting with a third-party vendor to manage the district's website. This is a new code created in the proposed 21-22 budget. Up to this point, the district has created and hosted its own site. In an effort to be more efficient and effective, we are moving to a third-party vendor to utilize a more sophisticated infrastructure. We will continue to control and update content internally here in Oceanside. At this point, are there any questions from the board about page 4?
Mr. Coakley?
Yeah.
The website management, that new line item there, I believe $14,000. Did you come up with that number based upon quotes that you've received or just?
Yes, great question. Thank you. We actually have a quote, and we have been in very deep talks with the vendor, thanks to the efforts of Ms. Kraus, who's taking the lead on it. That is a real number.
Okay, thank you.
And that was after basically vetting a couple of different companies. We didn't just go with one. We went and we looked at tons and tons of websites currently in existence, and that's how we narrowed down our search. And then we brought people in for interviews, or we did them, digitally. And then and now we narrowed it down to one company we think will serve us the best.
Okay, great.
Page 5. Oh, I'm sorry.
Are we taking questions right now from the members of the public? I think we would.
I think it'd be easier to do it by the page, so we don't have to go circle back. Yeah.
Well,
It's up to you, though.
okay, Mr. Vitowski, you have a question regarding page 4 of the budget?
Yes, on 1480, 405, the printing, it has on there the school calendar, which I know this year we did virtually and it seemed to work. It was very fluid.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering, and everybody of course loves the pictures and loves to get a hard copy, but
That's the point, because for the last couple of years, even pre-COVID, we tried to move to a digital version, saying it makes no sense to have a paper copy, and we got all kinds of pushback. So that's,
I would have a problem with that,
Yeah.
only because I've heard from parents, I've gotten multiple phone calls and questions as to why we don't have a hard copy one. A lot of people depend on that hard copy and want it. I would have a hard time giving that up.
also, our PTAs lost a lot of revenue because they would shrink the copy, the calendar, and make a little pocket one, and people love that. I'm just giving you the answer, Mr. Pikowski.
Just throw in my 2 cents. A lot of senior citizens in this community watch their grandchildren, and they really like having that copy.
That's a really good point, too.
What did she, Don, I didn't hear
I get a lot of calls every year from senior citizens. They want the calendar to stay up to date on what their grandchildren's schedules are so that they can arrange their life around their babysitting. I hear from the same people every year.
But that's a fair question. It's a fair question.
Any more questions on page 4 before we move to page 5? Okay, page 5.
Page 5, district-wide printing. The decrease you see reflected on the screen is BOCES copiers, is due to renewed leases for the 21-22 school year. We will be getting upgraded machines at much lower costs. Are there any questions from the board on page 5?
Yeah, I have just one, Jerome. On 1680, 460, and 490, just in general on the description, are any of the operational software packages due, or are they the same? I didn't go back in the prior years. I just wanted to, do you know which one is due, which one's not, or if there is or there isn't?
That's a great question.
Same as holds true for both these services, too.
Understood. That's a great question. The only reason I won't be able to answer that in its entirety is I know that because of Ms. O'Geary's efforts, we have a requirement now with data privacy, which we now have to have certain contracts with these companies. So I'm not sure which ones are new for next year or which ones are already existing. But they're all listed out.
They're all listed here, and you don't know which one's new.
That's
which
what
one's
I
not?
was pretty sure, I was pretty confident, but Mrs. Kahan has helped me. None of these are new. These are all,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on page 5? Page 19 reflects...
Wait, hold on.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Abbey has a question on page 5.
Quickly on 1910-418 on the flood insurance. In your data backup, you didn't mention who our carrier is, where you do on all the other lines.
For flood insurance?
And I'll ask the second question, that was the minor one. Are we on a blanket policy or are we a per building policy? Because my question goes to, we have certain buildings that are clearly not in a flood zone. Why would we play flood insurance?
Great question. I'm not 100% sure about the carrier, and I'm not 100% sure about the policy. I will look into that and get back to you. If that's
And
okay.
we will report out at our next meeting with the answer.
Might give some insight. When we had Hurricane Sandy, only the schools that were in the flood zone carried the flood insurance. That was the answer back then. I believe it's still the same now. It's only the schools that are in the flood zone, not spread between all the schools.
But we'll
I think
confirm.
it's just the way that it's worded in the budget.
It makes logical sense, which is probably why it's not happening that way, but it does make logical sense. We will definitely confirm and get back to you.
Thank you for the question.
Page 8.
Page 8, there is nothing we're highlighting, but are there any questions on page 8? Okay. Page 19 reflects transportation expenditures. There is nothing we are highlighting, but are there any questions on page 19?
Mr. Abbey, page 19.
Actually, I believe you mentioned it before, but were we part of the Guardian lawsuit?
You mean
The Bauman
The
lawsuit.
Bauman lawsuit? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you want to answer that?
Yeah, initially we were. Again, we've made good on all of our payments through the spring months. Bauman, if you remember, around the spring, filed for bankruptcy. We were advised legally to cease payments to them because of the bankruptcy litigation that was pending. We have since made good on the payments that we owed them, and we are no longer in the lawsuit that is still pending.
We owed them approximately $9,000, and we felt strongly that to litigate it would cost us much more than the $9,000. So we just paid. We didn't use Bauman at the same level as many of those other districts that use them as their primary carrier, like we use Guardian.
Thank you. Pages 20 and 21 reflect DACA expenditures for their central support and the DACA-related programs. There's nothing we are highlighting at this time, but are there any questions on pages 20 and 21?
I just want to reiterate what was said earlier. This entire budget is being planned as though we are going to be business as usual next year. So please know that in advance. Should anything change dramatically between now and when we finalize our budget, we still have an option to do that, but everything is moving forward as though we will be back to normal come September. That includes DACA. That's why you see the numbers for the DACA.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. The second component we will review is the capital component, which are on pages 23 through 26 and page 28 of your handout. The following categories on the screen are included in the capital component of our budget. And as the district continues making progress towards an energy performance contract, many of the items within the capital budget will be addressed in some way, shape, or form through the scope of work and ultimately development and construction of the energy performance contract, which will result in future decreases that would be happy to highlight on the screen through statements. On page 23, the General Renovations Code, which is a list of requests district-wide from principals and directors that is vetted through our district's board building committee, you will see a reflected proposed decrease from the prior year. Under operation of plant contractual, the proposed increase to boilers is due to necessary boiler replacements and additional repairs to older systems. Are there any questions from the board on page 23?
Mr. Coakley, the boilers, if we proceed with this, how will this be impacted by the EPC contract? Will that number, in other words, if we go forward with the EPC contract, I remember boilers being in there. So how will that and the next item that you have on page 24, the electricity, how will all of that be impacted?
Great question. We've factored into where we are today with the current infrastructure of our boiler systems with the contractor doing the energy performance contract. Mr. Sloth has taken the lead. They have been supportive of being able to take the work and additional repairs of where our money is going this year, proposed for next year, and continuing on that work so that we don't lose anything or waste money frivolously.
So in other words, you're aligning the two.
100%. And again, Mr. Sloth has been very adamant, to his credit, about sustaining the money that we're investing in our own infrastructure to not lose that moving forward with the energy performance contract.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Mr. Danbury?
Mr. Copley, on the AEDs, the 6 of them, are those new AEDs or those are just replacements?
It's based on a cycle of life. It's just based on the
So
schedule.
are some of these AEDs, we start replacing them
Yeah.
on their lifetime?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions for 23?
Okay, Mr. Potowski on page 23.
Yeah, on 23, what type of auditorium lighting upgrade is in OMS? 100,000? Is that for the stage? Is that for the auditorium?
It's stage lighting.
Stage lighting? Is it deteriorated and now obsolete?
Yeah, Bob, do you want to answer that more specifically?
That's exactly what it is. It's at a point where, first of all, it's inefficient, and then the system's not working properly anymore. Like over here, you get local lights, they change the bulbs, so it's very, very hard for them to run their shows and stuff on school line. It's way overdue.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is a request that Mr. Brace has brought forth certainly every year that I've been here, and we don't even let it get to the table. So this year, we said we were able to do that, and that's what we're proposing.
And the auditorium itself, sometimes seems dim.
I don't disagree, but that, go ahead, Bobby.
I just met today with the EPC.
Speak a little louder, Bobby.
I just met today with the EPC specialist on lighting all day. So the house lighting portion will all be changed with the EPC. So all our auditorium lighting will be all changed to all new lights, brighter lights.
Right, which is different than the actual
That's
stage.
different than the stage.
No, that's why I said.
Yep, great
I
question.
didn't know which it
Yep.
was in, I'm glad you informed me. Second,
Any question on 23?
no,
Yeah, 23.
still on 22.
Okay.
Sidewalk maintenance program. I see sidewalk here and I see it later on in a couple of other things.
Sidewalk maintenance program here,
Well,
parking
I
lot
see sidewalk
maintenance, maybe.
program here, and then I see it in other pages later on. On page 26A, there's walks and roadway, and then there was a third place I could go to. So I'm just wondering, are they different aspects of the sidewalks?
Actually, if you look, one of the sections is for supplies and materials for us to make in-house repairs, and the other one is for smaller repairs. This is for larger sections that we've predefined in certain schools that need to be taken care of.
So we get an outside vendor that comes in and does what?
This is only 6,500 here
For the sidewalk.
for the sidewalk repair program. That's listed on 23B.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Is that an annual program or is that?
No, that's for a specific section that we went around and looked at, that I wanted to make sure I had enough money to take care of.
You know, later on, there's a 90,000 for a couple of
Outside.
other, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Copley? I'm having a hard time hearing over here.
Understood.
I just want to make sure I heard correctly that the auditorium stage lighting, is that going to be, Bobby said he was working with the EPC company?
No.
Lighting, is that part of the EPC lighting
No,
or
no.
not?
What was said was that the $100,000 is for stage lighting.
Okay, that's separate.
And the lighting that Mr. Schultz is talking about is the house lighting, which will be part of the EPC
Okay.
a year from now.
All right, I just wanted to make sure I heard it
Yep,
correctly.
no, I apologize, the sound is not ideal. I apologize.
Page 24.
Page 24, under operation of plant contractual, typical estimated increases provided by the vendor reflect a proposed increase to electricity. And as previously mentioned, this is a perfect example of a line item that we anticipate seeing a significant decrease in next year's budget with respect to our energy performance contract. Any questions on page 24?
Any questions from the board on page 24? Okay, Mr. Patowski, page 24.
On 2416 and 2420, the 5-year facility survey. We budgeted for it last year, and now did we not do it because of COVID? And now we're budgeting it again?
So yes and no. Yes, we did budget for it last year. We had the annual visual inspection last year with the hopes of conducting that at the beginning portion of the year with the building condition survey at the latter portion of the year. When the governor announced in the spring, when the buildings closed, no construction, there went our plan, which is why it's back on the budget for next year.
So that money didn't get spent? It didn't get spent.
Well, it didn't get spent for that, it got spent for a lot of other things.
One line at a time.
Right, the house lighting. and the sidewalk.
No.
I'm only kidding.
That's exactly,
Any other questions on page 24 before we move to 25? Okay, page 25.
On page 25, operating plant materials and supplies, there are proposed increases in the codes for salts and cleaners and paper products. This is a continued effort thanks to the efforts of Mr. Slope and his entire Buildings and Grounds team to continue our deep cleaning and nightly sanitizing across all schools as per the current CDC recommendations. We will continue that until further notified by the CDC. Are there any questions from the board on page 25?
Any questions on page 25? Okay, page 26.
Page 26 reflects various maintenance of plant line items. There's nothing we are highlighting at this time, but I do welcome any questions from the board on page 26.
Any questions on page 26?
Here's just one.
Mr. Transom?
Hey, Bobby, what's an OBD2 vehicle diagnostic tester for $3,000? Is that one of those handhelds you plug
I
in?
am so glad, I knew that. So, when you have something wrong with your car and your check engine light comes
Yeah, you
on,
got a little tiny.
well, you can buy those little $50 ones, but they don't really tell you much. So, you basically go to the gas station, they charge you $150, and they say, oh, by the way, you gotta put a $25 gas cap on. So, when you buy a better quality one, we can actually troubleshoot the car ourselves. And if it needs spark plugs or an oxygen sensor or something like that, we can fix it in-house and save a lot of money on diagnostic costs.
Believe that. I wish I could have had it this week and saved me $1,300.
You can get the $50 one.
That's only if you can drop the gas tank on.
Any other questions on page 26?
No, it's 100.
Okay. Oh, Mr. Patowski, page 26.
On 26 is one of the places, 1621-414 and 1621-505 lists of walks and roadways again. So these are separate and apart from the other walkways and roadways.
Mr. Slope?
Okay, yeah, so that's for things that pop up. Okay, so in the middle of the winter, we might have a sidewalk that heaves, that we didn't anticipate. So the other stuff that we put in, we're anticipating. So this is for emergencies, for potholes, and, where we have to buy bags of blacktop after we snowplow. So that's for.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on page 26? Page 28, Mr. Coble.
Page 28 reflects debt service, installment purchases, and interfund transfers. There's nothing we're highlighting at this time, but I do welcome any questions on page 28.
Any questions on page 26 from the board? Okay, Mr. Abbey, page 28.
Quickly on 9711-600, why is our principal increasing?
Where are you?
The top one.
Oh,
The principal, that's the principal. It increased. And we haven't had a new bond in the last year.
That's a great question. That's based on the debt service schedule that we received years ago.
What I believe the change is due to the refunding that we did last year. So with the refunding, we saved some money on interest and it caused a larger debt, larger principal payment.
Thank you, Ms. Cahan.
Are you there? Terrible.
Why not?
It's cold.
Go ahead. You don't want to go home, I guess.
There you go. 9950, 900, the transfer capital fund.
Yes.
You have listed there, are we anticipating, I thought the re was done not too long ago.
The last 2 years, we've had schools 2 and 4 done. We have 3 and 5 on the docket.
Time flies, but yeah. I know 5 definitely needs to be done. Okay.
Thank you. Our budget vote and Board of Education trustee elections are scheduled for May 18th, 2021, from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. here at the Merrill Avenue Gym at School 6. This completes our overview and budget workshop 1. I thank you for the questions. Are there any other questions at this time?
Any other questions on the pages we just went over on the budget? Okay, no, thank you, Mr. Coker, that was excellent. Thank you. Okay, next is budget policies. This is the second reading of the policies that we're proposing that the board's going to be voting on tonight. There's 9 of them. They were introduced at the last board meeting. Policy 1204 is regarding location of school elections and budget. Policy 1403, standards of conduct. We're adding that paragraph regarding fraternization. 3116, student records. We're adding information regarding annual notifications. 3202 is our new curriculum, part of our curriculum policy. What's new is remote learning is now in a form of written policy. 3701, therapy dogs. We have therapy dogs. We now have a written policy regarding the therapy dogs. 3702, equity, inclusivity, and diversity in education. If you will notice from the last reading, due to some suggestions that were made at that time, 2 new paragraphs were added regarding the board and superintendent's roles and responsibilities with respect to the policy. 5119, information and data, privacy, security, breach, and notifications. This is a new policy. And 6900, policy regarding Department of Community Activity guidelines. What has changed is the annual meetings. And that's it. Those are the policies that we're going to be voting on tonight. Does the board have any questions regarding this?
Ms. Bowman, I just want to verify that you said 1403.8 social networking sites.
What did I do?
I just want to verify if I missed you, if you said that one or not. The social-
1403.7 students.
No, social networking sites.
Oh, excuse me, I skipped that. No, you're right. 1403.8 social networking sites, which is also part of the code of conduct regarding social networking sites. Okay, thank you, Dr. Morrison. Any questions? regarding these policies before we vote on them? Okay, thank you.
Good job, Mary Grace.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, construction report, Mr. Copley?
Construction report is as submitted.
Superintendent's report.
Enrollment as submitted.
Yep. Okay, opportunity for members of the community on items for action only. That would be items that we're voting on. If there's any questions from the committee. Okay, ready? Item A, approval of board policies.
I move all of them.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any opposed? I'm sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Okay, motion carries. B, approval to accept Town of Hempstead grant.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries.
Ms. Mulhern, I will make sure that a letter of thank you is sent directly to the town of Hempstead on your behalf, if that's okay.
Okay, see, acceptance of, I really, I really didn't hear what you said. If you, the sound is like, it is so difficult.
I'm so sorry, I do apologize.
Okay.
All I said,
We're waiting for a response.
I don't know what you just said.
I apologize. I just basically said I would send a letter on behalf of the board of gratitude for the grant.
Thank you so much, Dr. Harrington. Between the mask and the sound effects, I'm deaf and blind and dumb right now. So, all right, here we go. Sorry about that, thank you. C, acceptance of the,
Move it. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, motion carries. D, special education
move it.
placement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. I'm doing these motions separately, so E, professional personnel recommendation.
Move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. F, civil service
Move it.
personnel.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Abstain.
Motion carries. G, hourly employee
Move
recommendation.
it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? Motion carries. H, 2021 co-curriculum, new appointment.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone abstain? Okay, motion carries. Opportunity for a superintendent.
Yes, I'm going to turn the mic over to Ms. Provito, who has an announcement to make.
Thank you, Dr. Harrington. Back in December, Oceanside Parent University sponsored a viewing of the film Angst, which deals with student anxiety, mental health, and adolescence. We are so pleased to share with you that this week, all Oceanside High School students have the opportunity to view the film today and on Friday. This is accompanied by a number of activities and opportunities to talk to support staff members and our administrators. Under the direction of our mental health task force and Dr. Mitchell, Joelle Mizoun, these activities allow students to ask questions, engage in reflection, and I'm very, very proud to share with you that we have tremendous participation as of today. Last I reported and looked into, we have over 430 views from our students, which is an exceptional amount of viewings on the very first day of this endeavor. Very proud of the work. We do ask our parents to encourage their Oceanside High School students to participate in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Provito. Excellent work. Thank you.
Ms. Mulhern, other than just wishing everybody a Happy New Year, I don't know, I could speak for myself and say I just feel renewed, I so feel rejuvenated, and we're going to get through this, guys. We really, really are. We're getting closer and closer every day. So just Happy New Year. Please be well. Please be safe. That concludes my report, Ms. Mulhern.
Okay. Any opportunity for Board of Education? Anyone? Anyone? Okay. Opportunity for members of the community on non-agenda items. Anyone? Mrs. Lazaro.
Okay.
You mentioned about spring sports and winter sports, and you hope this and you hope that.
Okay.
We are beyond the point of hope. What actions is the board, Sandy, you mentioned writing letters to the legislators, calling the legislators about the budget. Are we doing that to support sports? Are we getting the message out? Because hoping and praying is not going to do us anything at this point. So what actions are we actually taking?
I can say on behalf of the board that we've written letters as individuals and as parents, as community members. We've all written letters, called, and everything else, and we've been nonstop doing that. We've supported sports all along. Okay, so the hope is that the governor wakes up and changes his agenda and his ruling that right now we're on hold with quote-unquote high-risk sports. So that's what our hope is. As a school district, I think as a parent, we hope that as well. So maybe the use of the word hope might not have been good, but that is really what we are aiming for. And I can say that we're very actively involved in doing that. I don't know if anybody else wants to add to any of that.
So the school district has written letters.
Can I, as a board, we wrote letters at the beginning of the school year.
Okay, but that was in September. Now we're dealing in
Well,
March.
I can speak that as individuals, we have written letters in favor of sports and asking the governor to reverse asking actually a local legislator.
Mrs. Mulhern, can I,
Yes.
since you referred to me, I would like to just respond. We wrote letters in September and October, and we sent them to the governor, and we got absolutely no response, which is typical of letters that you send to the governor. It doesn't go to his desk, it goes to his people's desk, and they don't really respond to us directly. But that doesn't mean that they don't do things as a result of those letters. Now, all of us have been in favor of sports and playing sports, and we are playing sports. To my knowledge, we have our low risk and our medium risk sports are all set to go. And as long as we keep our buildings open, that's one of the reasons why we don't want to compromise on spacing. Because if we compromise on spacing and infection comes into the building, then the contact tracing becomes difficult and the DOH is going to shut us down or quarantine us. The minute they do that, we have to shut down the sports programs that we just opened up. So to my knowledge, and the rest of the board's knowledge, all the medium and low risk sports are being played. And we intend to play them going forward until somebody pulls our plug. And that would be, somebody would be the man on high, which is the governor. So right now we're playing that. And the open field situation, we opened up the fields, and there is the open field practice, and a lot of the kids who are in the high-risk sports have been taking advantage of that and have been working out on the fields, and that's also been working out okay. But I'll tell you right now, if you want the high-risk sports to play, you've got to write your legislators. Forget the governor, because he's not paying attention to your letters. What you have to do is call or write your legislators, and that's what you referred to me about. That was the advice I gave PTA last night as well. And that's what I've been doing, and other board members have been doing. In fact, I was on the phone today with Assemblywoman Miller's office, with Assemblywoman Griffin's office, and also with the Senator's office. We speak on a weekly basis. They are all aware of the change.org petitions that have gone out. They are aware of the senators and the legislators from New York State that have written letters to the governor. Those are the letters that have to go. The legislators have to write letters to the governor to push him. And that's what you have to help us, when we call them and say, please write a letter to the governor asking him to allow us to open up our sports. Give us the direction that we need. Give us the guidance, because he's going to have to give us guidance and restrictions. But give it to us and give us the okay to proceed with the high-risk sports. That has to come from the governor. And our legislators would certainly help us if they would send letters and follow suit with some of the other legislators who have sent those letters. So I got a response today from Missy Miller. She said that she's been on top of it. She's already written her letter to the governor. Judy Griffin's office it's on her radar and definitely on the senator's radar. I spoke to his assistant today. So we've been doing that. We've been pushing, but you've got to push. And I will tell you this, one of the things they said to me today is after our PTA meeting last night, some of the ladies that were at the PTA meeting and the dads got on the phone today and did exactly that. And when I called the office this afternoon, oh yeah, we heard from one of your people from the PTA meeting last night, we heard from somebody else last week. It does matter, the phone calls matter, they record them. Even if you don't speak physically to the senator or the assemblywoman, they record it. But it can't be just us. We need all of the legislators to push. So that means other communities have to get to their legislators. Writing to the governor is just an exercise. And I've been doing this now for 30 years. Writing to the governor is just an exercise. What you have to do is you've got to work with your legislators because they're your mouthpiece in Albany. They're the ones who push your governor. And that's really, we've all been doing that. We've all been doing that. But we need you to join us. The same way that we're going to ask you to join us when we do the advocacy for the budget. Same thing. It can't be the same 7 people making the phone calls. It has to be more than 7 people. It has to be the community.
I feel like I'm living in a twilight zone right now. We've been standing here since September fighting for this, and now you're turning it around like the parents aren't doing enough.
Okay.
No, I'm not turning it around.
No, that's
I'm
not what she said.
Absolutely not. I'm asking you
Sandy, please.
for more help.
That's not what you said. We're just saying continue doing what you're doing. And when she's saying the word you, she means the community as a whole.
Well, and that's
So do you have
exactly
another
the point,
question?
is
Because
when
we
I-
made the point already. We are behind sports, Jen. We've been trying to get sports going forever. I don't know what more you think that we have the power to do as a board, but we have been doing everything that we know in our power to do. And I know that you as a parent have been doing that, and I know your group of people have been doing that, so just continue to keep doing that. So do you have another question?
No, I just
Okay.
want to say thank you because I don't think we all were aware that it was happening.
Well, it's
And I
been
don't
said,
think-
but-
also, I don't think the rest of the community was aware because they critique us and say, oh, you're only fighting for sports, which the reality is if sports happen, everything else is going to happen.
That's not necessarily true,
And
unfortunately.
the reality is they
but-
all have the right to be here and fight for their child's activity, whatever it is. So
Well, we fight for
we're fighting
everybody.
everything.
We fight for
We're
everybody.
fighting for everything, basically.
And you know that. You know that from day one. We said we're fighting for everybody. Mrs. Moore?
I just had a question regarding Section 8, because you put all this emphasis on the governor. The governor said that sports could start in September, but then it was Section 8, and it was the superintendent that said, no, we're going to wait until January. And I know there's limited winter sports that are playing right now. So fall sports are scheduled to start March 1st. When is the next meeting with Section 8, and what is the consensus with the superintendents that are on that board?
For high-risk sports?
No, well, right now, me personally, everyone knows soccer, so my heart does bleed for all the high-risk ones, but, having senior, we have 2 representatives here from the varsity team, they want to play. So what's the odds that Section 8 is going to, or superintendent say, no, for this reason or that reason, we're not going to play at all?
The odds are, as far as I'm concerned, as I sit here and we had a meeting to answer your question just, I think it was the latter part of last week, it's not, we want sports to play. The reason and I really don't want to rehash the fall, but part of that was just the uncertainty of what September was going to look like. And that was why Section 8 made the decision we made, which we had the power to make. But we were always about playing all sports, and we continue to be that. But we can't violate the governor's expectation or requirement that he had in September. He hasn't changed the low, high, or moderate risk sport category since September. Nothing of that has changed. And Robert Zayas, who's the head of the state organization, is the one most closely linked to him and has sort of like the ear, if you will, of the governor's office. And Zayas represents the entire state, and for sure I can tell you that the state's all over the place with what they want to do. And they haven't been able to to gain momentum at all. I'm just giving you the facts. That being said, that's correct. That's correct. All the other sports, we fully intend, unless, as I said again, you know, unless things should turn a very, very dark corner, which I really, really don't believe, we fully intend to have March 1st, our fall sports season beginning in March 1st. That will include boys and girls soccer, girls tennis, boys and girls cross country, boys badminton, boys cheerleading, not competitive, field hockey, girls swim, and boys golf. All of those are scheduled to play. Of course, unfortunately, football and volleyball remain the high-risk sports that are in that category that we are still fighting for and keeping our fingers crossed. What I said earlier was, we're ready to go with those sports on a moment's notice. Well, that's unfortunate that people feel that way, but I think that Section 8 was transparent from the very, very beginning. We recognized what went a little bit south there, which was Section 11 got ahead of us, and then, as you well know, Section 11 turned around and basically followed suit with what we were doing. But at the end of the day, we were always transparent. It's just maybe perhaps what we were saying is what people, you know, didn't want to hear. And there was some miscommunication, and I fully accept that. And we talked about that, you know, at length in the fall, and I apologize for that. But at the end of the day, we really stood behind what we thought, you know, was best for everybody. And I think that's the piece that can't be missed in this. The people who sit in Section 8, including all of the athletic directors, they work in school districts, and obviously, but if they also come to the table saying, look, I know I have to advocate for the area I'm most connected with, but at the end of the day, there's a bigger picture here. And even in our own community, there are still people that would not be happy if high-risk sports, if we pushed an envelope on that. But if the governor gave us license to do it, then we have to believe he's doing it with data, with the science behind him, and that's what we need to make that happen, and that's what we're hoping for. We keep pushing the fact that schools are still the safest place for kids, and those activities, you know, are still in students' best interests. But it does become an issue, because you say, well, wait a second, then how can my kid be on the football field, but you're telling me my kid can't be in a concert? So we're not trying to make it a competition, but we do represent all, as Ms. Mulhern said, and that's really where our intention is.
Any other questions, Mrs. Lazaro?
I have another question. So, not to rehash the fall, but you bring up about the transparency between Section 8 and the school districts, and at the time, Section 8 voted to postpone sports, and you were one of those voting members,
Correct.
and our board had no idea that you voted that
Correct.
way. And so, in the scope of full transparency, I filed a FOIA request on
Correct.
September 25th
Correct.
to figure out where
Correct.
the message got mixed, and it is now January 20th.
100%.
And you have requested 5 delays.
Well, I
Why
haven't.
that?
So let me clarify, that's a great point. So what Ms. Lazaro was referring is that she did join with a couple of other individuals who sent the same FOIA request to the 4 superintendents in the districts that they represented. That FOIA request was voluminous in nature, starting with emails back and forth, and other budgetary information, all of which is absolutely your right to receive as a resident and taxpayer. I will tell you that we passed it to our attorneys because we wanted to be sure that everyone was getting the same information. And I myself, I'm not the one who's postponing it. We passed it on to our attorneys. With that being said, Ms. Lazaro, I was getting the same letter you were getting with the update from the attorneys asking for more time. The Friday before Memorial Day break, I believe, was the last letter that we got, and I said, this is ridiculous. This is taking way too long. I will tell you that yesterday and today, back and forth with our attorneys, and I basically said, you need to get this out. So I can promise you, you have my word, that by the end of this week, you will have a response to that FOIA request, because I felt exactly the same way you did.
Every other school district and Section 8 have already...
That is absolutely inaccurate information. I spoke to the superintendent of the North Shore School District, represented by the same attorney. He's received nothing.
Well, right, because they're represented by the same law firm, and that's a little bit of a coincidence.
Yes, I understand the point, and I understand the point, and I share your sentiment that it's been way too long, and I absolutely have put the pressure on our attorneys, and I've promised you and committed that you will get a response by Friday. You can hold me to that.
Any other questions? Mr. Abbey?
Well, I have a comment, not a question.
Of a non-agenda item.
On the non-agenda. So, and since this is the last board meeting in January and before the Super Bowl, I want to make sure that the community is aware that Kiwanis Motion Side will be having their Super Bowl Sunday pancake breakfast, pandemic style this year. We will be, IHOP is helping us with this year instead of it being at St. Anthony's from 9 a.m. to noon on February 7th, Super Bowl Sunday. Whether you eat in or take out, they will be rolling a portion of the proceeds, or I don't know the percentage. Can you use that?
Yes,
15% of the proceeds back to Kiwanis and the Kiwanis kids. There'll also be set up raffle tables and other things outside of IHOP for the community to come join us. That's it.
Only if you root for the Bills, though, right?
The only New York team?
I know, we have to, it's a New York team.
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, standing motion to adjourn. Adjourn.